Silas went abroad for work. And when he returned, he brought with him a heavily pregnant woman. Lavinia. He brought her to our house and told me, without room for argument, that I was to take care of her. He said to Lavinia, "Relax and rest. After the baby is born, I'll be the father. Then, let her sigh. To me," he added, "Lavinia is a young lady. And she's pregnant. You need to look after her properly. Don't let her suffer any hardships." What was this supposed to mean? Was I really the one who had to endure all the unfairness? Fury overwhelmed me. And I packed my bags that very night, ready to leave with a one-way ticket. Today was the day Silas was returning from his business trip. I had returned home early from work, preparing a lavish spread of his favorite foods. Silas was quite particular about food. It would be too pitiful for him to survive on bland Western meals for more than a month. I had also drawn a bath and laid out his favorite loungewear on the bed. Everything was ready. And with a heart full of excitement, I stood in the front yard, eagerly waiting. Our butler, Arthur, teased me, saying that after years of marriage, I still acted like a love-struck girl. I blushed and couldn't find the words. Just as Silas's business car pulled up at the gate, I rushed out in a hurry, planning to give him an irresistible hug. The back seat door opened, and a heavily pregnant woman appeared before my eyes. Completely unexpected. Alara. Lavinia's divorced. And there were some problems with her family. So I brought her back, Silas said. His words as casual as if he were talking about a trivial matter. It felt as though I had been shoved into a freezing winter pond from behind. The excitement in me evaporated in an instant. Silas came around to the other side, talking while carefully helping the pale woman out of a car. "Long time no see, Alara. Sorry, but we'll be troubling you from now on," Lavinia said. Not even a trace of apology on her face. She addressed me, standing there frozen. Before continuing, "You must be tired from the trip, Lavinia. Let me show you inside to rest. Stop standing there. Alara. Help them bring in Lavinia's luggage. Don't miss anything," Silas ordered, his voice gentle as he guided Lavinia into the house, leaving me to watch them walking side by side, lost in my own stunned silence. Lavinia was Silas's first love. It was when she met a romantic Italian man on a trip that I had the chance to marry Silas. After the marriage, there was no word from her, and I naturally assumed she would never be an issue between Silas and me. But now, as I thought back on it all, I found myself completely lost. What was going on? Was his first love returning to claim everything? In a muddled daze, I went back to the living room. Silas was giving Lavinia a tour of the house. Perhaps noticing the look on my face. Or maybe finally realizing that an explanation was necessary. He called me from where he stood. "Alara, come here. You know about my relationship with Lavinia. We grew up together. She's like a sister to me. She's been through a lot. And I can't just leave her to deal with everything on her own. Can you understand that?" To be honest, I didn't understand, but it seemed like I had no choice. Seeing me silent, Silas probably assumed I would just accept it. After all, I had never once done anything to disappoint him. "Lavinia, are you hungry? Would you like something to eat?" Silas asked, turning to her. Lavinia stroked her belly, hesitated for a moment, and said nothing. "Don't worry. This is your home now. If you can't eat, maybe you'd like some soup? Alara is really good at making it," he added, his voice soothing. I was indeed very good at making soup, and everyone who had tasted it always remembered it. But the truth was, before marriage, I had been a complete novice in the kitchen. I only became a soup-making expert because Silas loved it so much. And I quickly learned. Lavinia glanced at me and said apologetically, Would that be too much trouble for you, Alara?" I must have looked a little upset because Silas immediately left Lavinia's side, walked over to me, and softened his tone. "No, Alara isn't the type to mind small things. Is she? Go on. Make the soup now. Let Lavinia have some. And she can rest." Silas was always cold and distant, his emotions never showing. But seeing that rare, pleading look in his deep eyes, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. Fine. I finally relented. After all, Silas's sister could be considered my sister too. With so many rooms and servants in the house, taking care of one pregnant woman shouldn't be a problem. Once the casserole was on the stove, I had mentally prepared myself. If it hadn't been for Lavinia stepping aside, I wouldn't have married Silas at all. Thinking this, I even felt a little guilty had I been too cold just now. The sunniest and most spacious room in the house was my study. I decided it would be better for Lavinia to stay there. Leaving the kitchen to discuss this with Silas, I overheard him talking with Arthur in the living room. This doesn't seem right, sir. There are so many rooms in the house. Do we really have to give the master bedroom to Lavinia? Besides, wouldn't that be unfair to the lady of the house? Arthur's voice was filled with hesitation. The master bedroom? Lavinia? I thought I must have heard wrong. But Silas's voice clearly came through. Lavinia is a young lady, and she's already been through so much. I didn't bring her back to let her continue suffering. Alara. She's different. She can stay anywhere she likes. Silas. That's not fair. I couldn't help but speak up. The three people in the living room turned to look at me. Lavinia, who had remained silent, spoke softly. Silas. Don't let this affect your marriage. I'll be fine with wherever Alara allows me to stay. I can stay anywhere. Hearing her, Silas turned to me, his tone suddenly sharp with anger. Alara. Lavinia is pregnant and has no one to rely on. She's already endured so much hardship. The master bedroom has the best view and is a suite. It's the most suitable for her to rest and take care of the baby. It's just a sleeping place. Don't make such a fuss about it. You're being petty. All right. Go and get the bedroom ready so Lavinia can have a good night's sleep. In this house, Silas's word was law. When my family business ran into trouble, it was him who helped, saving us from ruin. At the grand thank you banquet, my father introduced me to him. Silas was young, talented, and handsome. The moment our eyes met, my heart fluttered. He didn't say much to me then, but a month later, he asked my father about my situation. A man like him taking an interest in his daughter was exactly what my parents wanted. So, it didn't take long before I went from being Alara to Mrs. Silas. It wasn't until much later that I learned that during the time we were getting to know each other, Lavinia had been fighting with her family about marrying that romantic foreign man. I never thought too much about it, because Lavinia and I were completely different kinds of people. If Silas needed a stand-in to express his emotions, he would never choose someone like me. So at least I must have had some appeal to him. I never objected to his decisions because I was the one in the weaker position. In terms of family background, and in terms of feelings, Lavinia sat comfortably on the sofa in the suite, naturally directing the servants to move this and shift that. Then she walked into the walk-in closet and flashed me a radiant smile as I quietly tittied up. These jewels of yours. You don't need to rush and pack them away. No one will touch them, I assure you. Ignoring the subtle condescension in her tone, I retrieved a few jade ornaments from a hidden compartment and told her. Nothing else matters. But these few items were passed down from my grandmother to my mother. And from her to me. They are valuable. Yes. But more importantly, they hold great significance. They must be properly kept, so they can eventually serve as dowries for my daughter with Silas. Lavinia didn't say another word but cast a thoughtful look between me and the bracelet. I wasn't in the mood to guess her thoughts. So I left, clutching the jewelry box. Arthur came to find me, saying that while Silas had told him to give the master bedroom to Lavinia, he hadn't made any arrangements for where I was supposed to sleep. Listening to the howling wind outside, I felt a bit lost. Silas was a picky man. He would surely never want to stay in the guest room, a place he seldom used. The study seemed the most suitable. There would be enough space for an extra bed. But, after a moment's thought, I said to Arthur, let's add a bed in both his study and mine. Arthur hesitated, asking uncertainly, separate rooms? Alara, this will make Mr. Silas angry. I shook my head and told him to go ahead with the arrangements. I wanted him to be angry. I wasn't sure if Silas was angry. The next time I saw him was already the following morning. Lavinia seemed to be in a bad mood for some reason and refused breakfast. Silas was gently coaxing her by her side. I had them make your favorite eggs Benedict. Lavinia, you need to eat something. Don't be anxious. Okay? After you give birth, I'll be the baby's father. He said he would be a father to Lavinia's child. But we'd been married for 5 years. And he had never agreed to let me get pregnant. Always saying the time wasn't right. It was hard to say what I felt. Perhaps it was the sleepless night. My restless mind unable to process it all. Lavinia still remained motionless. Her head bowed as she gently stroked her belly. Silas seemed somewhat pained and said, "Why are you still crying? You must have the prenatal checkup. Lavinia. It's necessary for both you and the baby." He paused. Then added, "You like Alara's jade bracelet, don't you? If you eat your meals and do the checkups obediently, the bracelet will be yours." Lavinia suddenly lifted her head, turning her tears into a smile. My foggy mind immediately cleared up. "Silas. You better not be lying to me." "Silas. What are you talking about?" Both Lavinia and I asked in unison. Both of them turned in surprise to look at me as I walked down the stairs. I walked straight up to Silas, gazing into his eyes and saying, "You haven't forgotten that the bracelet has been passed down in my family for generations, have you? And you still remember that my grandmother is already gone, don't you?" "Silas? I'm sorry. I don't want the bracelet anymore." "Don't be angry with Silas," Lavinia said, her face still streaked with tears, looking particularly pitiful. As soon as Lavinia finished speaking, the brief stiffness on Silas's face disappeared. He took a tissue from the table and handed it to her, coldly saying, "Alara, the bracelet belongs to the dead, while the living can enjoy it. If it makes Lavinia happy and helps her have a healthy baby, then that's its fate. Be sensible now. Go get the bracelet and bring it to Lavinia. We're running out of time for the checkup." "Wait. You're going with her for the checkup?" I said in disbelief. "Aren't you coming to the hospital with me?" For a moment, Silas paused, then continued his action, saying, "I forgot. The doctor I booked for you is today too. They're not in the same hospital as the prenatal one. You go ahead by yourself. I'll stay with Lavinia for her checkup and come to pick you up afterward." Without even lifting his eyes, he cut the sandwich for Lavinia. She took it but didn't eat it, instead handing the whole plate to me and gently said, "Eat something. Alara. Don't be angry. Okay?" Silas furrowed his brow and said to Lavinia, "You don't need to worry about these things. If she wants something, she'll tell the kitchen." Then he turned to me and added, "Go get the bracelet now. I'll buy you some more expensive jewelry at the auction in a few days to make it up to you." Naturally, I went to the hospital alone. About a year ago, I started fainting suddenly without warning. I saw many specialists, took countless medications, but nothing worked. Later, Silas somehow heard about a miraculous Chinese doctor and had someone book an appointment for me. I was somewhat pleased, thinking that, slowly but surely, I might finally have a place in his heart. Lavinia's sudden arrival became like a mirror, revealing me as a clown, endlessly chasing Silas. Even the myth of the giant chasing the sun seemed to hold a glimmer of success. Yet I didn't know that Silas, the one I was desperately pursuing, had already shut his heart, with only his cherished first love, Lavinia, within. The diagnosis was unexpected, and I nervously awaited Silas to come pick me up. I didn't know what reaction he'd have to this result. I waited, and waited, until the sky darkened, and snowflakes began falling. Yet, he never showed up. Silas always keeps his word. But my calls and messages went unanswered. Was something wrong? The snow kept falling harder, and the weather alerts on my phone kept rising. The bitter cold and growing anxiety made me tremble uncontrollably. No one accepted my taxi order, and waiting didn't seem like an option. I braved the wind and snow and left the hospital, trying to hail a cab while walking. Just as I was about to collapse from exhaustion in the blinding snow, a car horn rang out, startling me. A black business car stopped in front of me, and the window slowly rolled down. It wasn't Silas, but a stranger's face. He told me to get in, asked for my destination, and instructed the driver to take me there first. After a long and difficult journey, I finally arrived home. My anxious heart pushed me to rush through the door, and I collided with Silas. "Are you all right?" I grabbed his arm and checked him up and down. "Am I all right? Why are your lips blue? Where have you been dressed like this?" He looked a bit confused. Relieved that he was fine, I took in my surroundings. In the middle of the yard was a snowman taking shape, and in Silas's red hands was a snowball. The living room's French doors were open just a crack, and Lavinia was sticking her head out, shouting from afar, "Silas, is my snowman finished? Make sure it looks like me, or I'll make you build another one that looks like you." Silas patiently replied, "It's almost done. Go back and close the door. Don't get too cold." Then he turned around, and upon seeing the hospital folder in my hand, it seemed like he had just remembered that, across the city, his legal wife was still waiting for him in another hospital. Looking at his delayed reaction, it felt as if the snowstorm was sweeping over me. I released Silas's sleeve and murmured, "Such heavy snow. Silas, let's divorce." When I regained consciousness, I found myself lying in the study's bed. A blurry figure of a man stood before me. Upon seeing my eyes open, he exclaimed with joy, "Alara, you're finally awake." "Sir, he's on the 4th floor. Should I go call him now?" The 4th floor was the suite Silas and I used to live in. "Please ask him to come down, Arthur." I spoke calmly. Silas entered, reaching to check my forehead. "The fever's gone. You've been unconscious for almost 20 hours. With great effort, I propped myself up and said to him, "Did I ever tell you I want a divorce?" Silas straightened up slowly, folding his arms and staring at me as if trying to determine if I was fully awake. After a long pause, he furrowed his brows and said, "Have I been too good to you, Alara? Spoiling you this much? I forgot to pick you up. And now you're dissatisfied? There's a limit to this." I shook my head, silently meeting his gaze. "This was just the last straw," I said quietly. "The last straw? Huh?" He sneered. "Sounds like you have a lot of complaints about me." I stared at him without blinking, my voice trembling. "I thought that after years of marriage, you might have some feelings for me. Now I realize there's no space for me in your heart. You should have told me earlier." "Silas, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Seeing me run around like a fool for so long. You gave her my bedroom. My bracelet too. Silas. Now I'm giving you to her." Silas's face darkened, still standing with his arms crossed. His voice was cold as he replied, "It's all just material things. Alara, if you really care, I can give you something better." I couldn't help but sigh. I turned away, staring at the ceiling. "It probably wouldn't be better than what you gave Lavinia. In your heart, she's the one who can't be wronged." Silas didn't speak for a moment, but after a brief silence, he snapped, "I have things to deal with. I don't have time for your petty complaints. Calm down, Alara. Divorce isn't something you can use to threaten me. Don't try that again." The door slammed shut with a loud bang, indicating that the person leaving was in a very bad mood. I didn't have time to dwell on his emotions. Instead, I took out my phone and called my lawyer, asking him to draw up a divorce agreement as soon as possible. Silas would never sign willingly, so I just needed something that would make his position clear. It had to hurt him, but not leave me at a disadvantage. Then I gathered my valuables and packed them into a suitcase. I couldn't go back to my family. They were on Silas's side. After thinking for a while, I decided to send a message to my college friend, Zuri. She responded excitedly, telling me to hurry over. She was on the verge of depression from looking after her child. With everything settled, the divorce papers were sent over. I printed them out and headed upstairs to find Silas. I stopped with my hand hovering over the door, hesitating for a moment. For the first time in years, I skipped the formality of knocking and simply pushed the door open. Everyone inside looked up in surprise. Yes, there were 2 people in the room. Silas was working at his desk, and Lavinia sat on the bed across from him, holding a tablet and watching a TV show. God, I really know now. I really know. No need to remind me again. I'm not even as good as his first love's pinky finger. The study was Silas's personal domain. He never allowed me to linger here. Nor did he permit me to watch pointless TV shows in any area he could hear. As for the bed, even though it belonged to both of us, he still didn't allow me to do anything other than sleep in it. Had I seen this scene a few days ago, I would have been heartbroken. But now, I pretended not to see Lavinia and walked directly toward Silas's desk. Aren't you the one who said you wanted a divorce? Why are you still here with Silas? Lavinia broke the awkward silence. Lavinia. Silas interrupted her before she could say more. Lavinia seemed taken aback. Sign this after you've read it, I said, handing the document to Silas. Turning to Lavinia, I added, you've already taken the master bedroom. What are you in such a hurry for? Once Silas and I finalize the divorce, you can immediately drag him next door and get married. And he'll be the legitimate father of your child. Silas tapped the desk, cutting me off. He threw the agreement aside with force, his face as dark as a thunderstorm. I warn you. Elara, stop making a scene. When I run out of patience, this little game of yours will turn real. And you won't be able to take it back. I nonchalantly replied. Memph. Take a good look. I'm only taking what's mine. If you have any objections, speak up quickly. Don't waste each other's time. With that, I left without looking back. As I turned to close the door, I saw Lavinia swiftly jump off the bed, eagerly walk up to Silas, and grab the document, her face bright with excitement. She's really going to divorce you? She asked, unable to hide her joy. I rolled my eyes, slammed the door shut, and returned to my room, packing my suitcase. It was time to leave the villa where I had lived for so many years. Elara really left, and it caught Silas off guard. As Mrs. Silas, she had always been flawless. Family, friends, colleagues, no one had ever mentioned anything wrong with her. Elara always smiled, never one to get angry. Silas had once asked her why. Elara had answered honestly, because she didn't care. She didn't want to waste her precious life on things and people who didn't matter. She had said that there was actually one time she had been really angry with him. Silas remembered it well. It was shortly after their wedding. They had attended a banquet, and Silas ran into an old female senior from school. He was very interested in her current high-tech project, and the noise at the banquet made it hard to talk. So, he moved a little closer to her, unintentionally losing track of time. It was only when the senior reminded him that he realized how long he had ignored Elara. It seemed like too little. Too late. And no matter how gently he spoke to Elara after that, she answered. But her tone was indifferent. Even Silas, slow to pick up on things, could sense the distance. Later, Hazapudar, in the car on the way home, feeling guilty, Silas gripped her hand tightly, unwilling to let go. Elara stared out of the window, letting his sweaty palm make hers burn. Soon, the hideout. She suddenly turned around and pointed to a small stall by the roadside, saying, Silas, I want candied chestnuts. Silas immediately ordered the driver to stop. It was the first time he'd bought such a snack. A warm, sweet bag, costing just 21 yuan. Silas fed her one, and she immediately smiled at him, her eyes soft. He sighed in relief, took another chestnut and began peeling it for her, playfully asking Elara to peel one for him too. But she mercilessly gathered the rest of the chestnuts to her chest and said, no one is allowed to eat them. Not even you. With this thought in mind, Silas found himself inexplicably entering Elara's study. He wasn't familiar with the room, but he immediately spotted a heart-shaped arrangement made from candied chestnuts on the bookshelf. Dozens of crooked chestnuts had been carefully arranged into a beautiful picture. It was clear that she had put a lot of effort into the decoration. Silas seemed frozen in place, staring at the picture for a long time. Then, he took out his phone and dialed Elara's number. The call was answered quickly, and Silas said, hello. Elara's voice relieved some of the tension he had been carrying for days. But what she said next made him frown again. She asked. Why are you looking for me? Has the document been signed? Silas massaged his temples and replied. Alara. I know that having Lavinia move and must have made things difficult for you. But running away from home isn't the solution. Come back now. The position of Mrs. Silas is still yours. You'll always be the lady of this house. He waited for an answer but received none. Alara let out a short, cold laugh, and then promptly hung up the phone. During university, Zuri had taken me to her hometown. It was a reunion with an old friend, the blue sea and sky. The sea breeze gently sweeping away the dark clouds that had been hanging over my mind. Zuri told me that her cousin, Ronan, was in town on business. We had met briefly last time, and he was treating us to dinner. She suggested we go together. That meeting turned out to be unforgettable. Zuri's cousin, Ronan, was tall and handsome, with sharp brows and bright eyes. His imposing height of nearly 1.9 meters gave him a certain pressure, making him stand out from everyone around him. I quickly texted Zuri. How could I have no memory of this perfect-looking guy? Did you bring other women around him behind my back? Zuri replied, rolling her eyes. You were so head over heels for Silas back then. No other man could catch your eye. The sudden mention of Silas felt like sparks, and I winced in pain. At that moment, Ronan handed me a glass of refreshing juice and said, I remember you don't drink alcohol. I smiled and took the glass. Thanks. I'm drinking now. Zuri, noticing the exchange, raised an eyebrow and teased. After all these years, you still remember she doesn't drink? Bro, had info session. Are you interested in our Alara? Don't deny it. You two actually make a great match. But it's a pity someone here is already married young. She sighed dramatically, elevating her voice. However, bro, you still have hope. Alara's getting divorced. You could lend her your legal team to help her get her freedom back. I was so embarrassed that I tugged at the hem of her shirt under the table. Ronan glanced at the table briefly, having fulfilled land session, smiled ambiguously, and changed the subject. Tomorrow morning I'll be meeting those Japanese clients again. As usual. Zuri, I'll need you to translate for me. Zuri sighed again and said with a frown. My sister isn't the kind of sister who's available all the time. I've got a baby to take care of now. She grabbed my hand and said to Ronan. Please ask Alara for help. She studied Japanese as a second language. We went to Japan for an exchange program back in the day. Of course. I had no reason to refuse. I spent the whole day helping Ron and negotiate with a group of busy Japanese clients. And by evening, he insisted on treating me to dinner as a reward. The seaside outdoor restaurant had a mesmerizing view at night. The wine and food Ronan chose paired perfectly. And I enjoyed the meal greatly. After eating, Ronan casually said, Alara is beautiful, capable, and easygoing. It makes me curious what kind of man, unworthy of her, would fail to appreciate her, to the point that Alara wants a divorce. I took a small sip of the sparkling white wine in my glass and replied softly. There's nothing new under the sun. Some people think the red roses in their hands are just mosquito blood, forever unable to compare to the first love they never got. In Silas's world, where efficiency and profit rolled, he had once firmly believed that no one was irreplaceable. When Lavinia moved overseas, he had been down for a while, but quickly picked himself up and even seemed to be in a better state than before. So, he thought this time would be no different. Separating from Alara might be a bit troublesome. After all, it was a divorce. But he didn't think it would spiral out of control. Until one morning, as Silas was brushing his teeth, he realized his toothbrush had no power. Surprised, he held the toothbrush up, examining it carefully. He noticed it was a bit frayed. It turned out his toothbrush needed to be recharged, and the brush head needed replacing. That's when it hit him. Alara had always taken care of these things for him. The realization unsettled him, and the rest of the day, his mind was restless. At dinner, there was a steamed bass on the table. Lavinia saw it from a distance and immediately started throwing a tantrum. She stubbornly refused to sit at the table, whining, I never eat fish. Its big eyes are staring at me. It's so scary. You know that, Silas. Silas fell silent for a long time before saying, "These things have always been Alara's concern." Lavinia stopped talking. Annoyed, Silas ordered the fish to be taken away. The vast dining room was now just Silas and Lavinia. He couldn't help but think back to countless meals. Countless days. All spent here with Alara. Silas suddenly realized that, despite eating together every day, he didn't know Alara's preferences at all. Was there something she didn't eat? Was she afraid of fish with big eyes? The thought made him even more frustrated. Without a word, he returned to his study, pulled out his phone, and typed, "Alara" before sending it. A red exclamation mark appeared on the screen. Not bothering to think further, he hurriedly dialed her number. The call connected, and he let out a small sigh of relief, unwittingly softening his voice as he called her name. "Alara." She responded. "Finally fed up with my unreasonable demands? Have you agreed to the divorce?" Silas seemed to ignore her words and said to himself, "Alara, what do you like to eat?" The person on the other end seemed to be taken aback before responding coldly. "Silas, I hope next time you call, it's to discuss the divorce, not these ridiculous things. Otherwise, I'll block your number. Any future issues, please talk to my lawyer." As the evening deepened, Silas sat silently in the dark study, listening to the harsh beeping sound from the phone, and a strange emotion stirred in his chest. Something was slipping out of control. He, Silas, seemed to be on the verge of being completely abandoned by Alara. After hanging up the phone, the person across from me silently pushed over a plate of neatly peeled shrimp. For the time being, I was helping Ronan out. Who could refuse working with such a handsome, wealthy, and generous boss? He saw my displeased expression as I put my phone away, and while removing his plastic gloves, he asked, "So, he won't divorce you? Looks like he's not beyond saving yet. What do you think?" I replied, "My thoughts? It's over. Completely over." I bit into a large shrimp angrily and muttered, "He must have realized that he's missing a useful tool, and now he's getting used to it. I know I'm great. Sometimes I even regret not marrying myself. Undoubtedly, anyone who's with me will be happy. But if I go back to him, it'll be even worse than before. He'll make me tolerate even more absurd things." As I was venting, I suddenly noticed that Ronan seemed to have peeled an entire plate of shrimp for me. Feeling a little embarrassed, I said, "I can't eat all of this. You should have some too." He casually folded his arms and said with a smirk, "It's all for you. How about you feed me one?" I thought I had misheard him. "Me? Feed you one?" He seemed slightly embarrassed, cleared his throat, and then said, "You misheard me. I said, give me one." Now, I felt a little awkward too, not daring to look him in the eye. I lowered my head and dropped a shrimp into his bowl. He elegantly ate the shrimp, then took a small sip of wine before saying, "After dinner, let's take a walk on the beach. There are fireworks tonight." "Sure. But how did you know there would be fireworks?" I looked up at him. "Zuri told me you two came here together once during college. Watched the fireworks by the sea. And you said you were so happy, you almost fainted. Is that right?" He answered my question with a question. I said, "Yes, cutting fulfilled my obsession. Zuri even said we saw each other then. But I don't remember." He sighed lightly, then spoke softly. "Actually, it wasn't just that time. Seems like you don't remember any of it." I truly didn't catch his words. "What did you say? Your voice was too low. I didn't hear you." He tapped the table gently and said, "Nothing. I was just saying these shrimp are really good. Give me another one." Silas tracked down Alara's whereabouts and flew over that very night. It was a charming seaside guest house with a beautiful view. The guest house staff told Silas that Alara had gone surfing. Silas walked along the coastline, stopping at surf shops one by one to ask about her. Eventually, he found her. Alara, always gentle with her words, was confidently riding one wave after another, a freedom and ease Silas had never seen before. He was captivated, but suddenly a large wave came crashing in, knocking Alara off balance. Silas rushed into the sea, But Alara had already popped her head out from the water. A tall man quickly swam over and helped Alara, asking if she was okay. Silas stood on the beach, reaching out his hand to the drenched Alara. The sudden appearance of Silas truly startled me. But I quickly recovered and said, "Just send over the divorce agreement. Why bother having CEO Silas personally come all the way here?" Silas held out his hand, not responding to my words but instead speaking coolly to Ronan. "Thank you for taking care of my wife. Now that I'm here, you can let her go." Ronan glanced at him and then turned to look at me. "Is this the guy who left you to walk home alone on that snowstorm night?" That day. It was him. I was shocked again. I hadn't dared sit in the back seat. And I was so tired and cold, worrying about not being able to reach Silas, that I didn't have the energy to notice what the person who saved me looked like. Silas heard this and, with a cold face, addressed Ronan. "This is a private matter between my wife and me. It's not something for others to concern themselves with." "Not so. I've already concerned myself with it. That day, I was the one who found her and brought her home." Ronan spoke calmly. "I heard you were busy accompanying your non-blood related sister to her prenatal checkup. What's the matter? Does your sister no longer need you?" Silas remained silent for a moment before looking at me. Then said, "Alara, I was wrong about Lavinia. I made you suffer so much. After you left, I realized I can't live without you. I don't even know when, but I've fallen in love with you." I stared at him in surprise, unable to grasp this sudden confession. After waiting so long, I finally heard these words. In such a situation, unfortunately, having fulfilled my IPSI, time had passed, and now all I felt was amusement. I thought to myself, and then spoke aloud, 6 years. And only now have you realized it? What are you trying to say now? Am I supposed to be grateful and accept it? I wasn't born for you, Silas. I was just unlucky to run into you." Silas stepped forward, reaching out to grab me, urgently saying, "Alara, come back with me. I'll agree to anything." I pulled my hand away, saying, "Then can you give me back my bracelet?" He paused in silence before replying, "Once something's given away, it can't just be taken back. Alara, don't make this harder on me." I was speechless, almost laughing. So I did laugh. I smiled at him and said, "That's true. Just like the divorce agreement I gave you. I don't think I should take it back." After a long, exhausting day, Silas lay on the bed in the guest house, unable to sleep. His mind was filled with images of Alara, surfing, and her carefree, radiant smile. Alara used to smile at him like that, but it seemed like a long time ago. It was when they first met. A clear-eyed girl, following her father, smiling like a summer rose, exuding a natural sweetness. She listened quietly as her father introduced her to him, casting curious glances his way. For a long time after, when he was in meetings, negotiations, or meals, her bright smile would unexpectedly appear before him. Perhaps that was why he didn't feel as sad about Lavinia leaving. Silas suddenly felt a headache coming on. He didn't know why, but his mind wandered back to their honeymoon trip when he took Alara skiing. He had thought Alara would only play on the beginner slopes. But to his surprise, Alara was fearless, happily conquering the advanced slopes, even yelling to try off-piste skiing with a new snowboarding friend. Silas, of course, immediately refused. Even he, having fulfilled my assertion, a lifelong skier, barely managed the advanced slopes here. For someone who had only skied a few times, trying off-piste, that was reckless. Moreover, every year, people got into accidents while skiing off-piste. If anything happened to her, what would he do? How did the free-spirited Alara eventually become the gentle and virtuous Mrs. Silas that everyone talked about? Silas pressed his hand to his aching temples and let out a low, helpless groan. He had been wrong all along, missing out on so much. By the time the sky brightened, Silas had finally fallen into a restless sleep. After waking up, Silas looked out the window and saw Alara busy preparing soup ingredients in the shared kitchen. He immediately recognized it as the soup she often made for him. Since arriving here, He had barely eaten anything due to the local conditions. Of course. How could the gentle and considerate Alara suddenly stop caring about him? Silas restlessly waited in his room. But Alara never came to find him. Had she cut herself or burned herself? With that thought, Silas rushed toward the kitchen. He stopped outside the door. In the dining area of the kitchen, Ronan was sitting across from Alara, smiling widely as he drank the soup. He praised Alara's cooking as he sipped, his words full of admiration. Silas remembered that Alara had learned to cook and make soup specifically for him. But he had eaten countless dishes she had made and drunk countless bowls of soup she had served. Yet he had never once given her any feedback. He stood there, watching as Ronan quickly finished his soup, almost playfully asking Alara for another bowl. Alara smiled kindly as she took his bowl and refilled it. Ronan noticed Silas standing outside the door. His smile faded, and he looked at Silas with a wary expression, asking what he wanted. Silas stepped into the kitchen and, looking at Alara who was focused on serving the soup, asked, "Did you find out the cause the last time you went to the hospital for a checkup?" "If you're talking about Alara fainting. The doctor said it was caused by long-term suppressed emotions and poor diet and sleep quality due to stress," Ronan answered, blowing on his soup. Alara didn't speak, but Ronan continued to answer Silas's question. "But don't worry. I've already arranged for the most reputable doctor to treat her." A look of shame crossed Silas's face, and he took a deep breath before turning to Alara. "I'm sorry, Alara. I should have taken better care of you. And about Lavinia. I didn't think things through." Alara finally spoke, saying the first words she had to him that day. "It's okay. Actually, I should thank you for bringing Lavinia back. Only extreme pain can make someone completely wake up. Silas. Thank you for helping me let go." Alara's not caring theory suddenly jumped into Silas's mind. And after a moment of breathless panic, he struggled to calm his breath, looking at her urgently. "So Alara. Now, I've been put into the don't care category, right?" Alara hesitated, meeting his gaze. There was a brief flash of sadness in her eyes before she calmly replied, "Yes. I don't care anymore. The day we filed for divorce, Silas and I sat in silence in the lobby. As our turn approached, he called my name and asked, 'Alara, have your in-laws made things difficult for you? If you need, I can talk to them and set things straight. The problem is with me.' 'No need,' I replied. I was young back then, blinded by my emotions, and didn't understand things clearly. Looking back, they probably thought of me as a gift to you. If I could catch your eye, Alara's family would have another tree to rely on. So, I don't care about their opinions anymore." Silas frowned, as if stung by my words, then continued, "You've read the new divorce agreement, right? You mentioned you didn't like living in a villa. So I've given you several apartments. I've also allocated more assets to you. Though you won't stop working, those assets will ensure you can live comfortably. As a kind of compensation, I won't change my number. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to call me." I smiled and turned to him, saying, "I've definitely read it. I just invested wholeheartedly in a relationship. I'm not some naive, sweet girl who thinks love alone is enough. Anyway, thank you for your generosity, Mr. Silas." Upon hearing this, Silas's lips twitched slightly, as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, he only sighed lightly and said nothing. A month later, when I met Silas again to finalize the divorce, his transformation was so drastic that I almost didn't recognize him. The once sharp and indestructible Silas now had a weary, melancholic side. His muscular frame, usually firm and strong, seemed to have wasted away, leaving him looking almost frail. When he saw me, he forced a smile and handed me a shopping bag. "Your bracelet." I was a bit surprised. I had planned to wait until after the divorce to ask for the bracelet back. "How did Lavinia agree to this?" I asked curiously. Silas gave a self-deprecating laugh before replying. "She said she wanted to marry me. But my heart already has no room for anyone else. So I sent her back. It's my fault for not being clear." Which led her to have such an absurd idea. He glanced around and asked, "What about the man? Why didn't he come with you?" I shook my hand, showing him the wedding ring I had purposely worn again today. He's indeed pursuing me, but I have some basic morals. I need to clear up the previous relationship before considering a new one. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fair to him. I'll sell this ring and donate the money to the Chunlei project. Girls need to read more so they can have more choices. Silas lowered his head, twisting his own wedding ring, and said, "Fine, heading fulfilled my session. You decide. But I want to keep mine." And Alara. Once again, "I'm sorry for the hurt I caused you." I looked at him calmly and replied, although I'd decided to let go of the painful memories. "Silas, I accept your apology. This way, we can't really put an end to it all, with no debts between us, and go our separate ways." Silas's fingers turned pale as he tightly gripped the wedding ring, his tall figure swaying as if he might fall at any moment. "Let's go. We have to get the certificate." I didn't look at him again, turning to walk into the lobby. Later, alone in a restaurant where the average bill was thousands per person, I was enjoying my pre-meal wine when I received a call from Ronan. "Is everything going smoothly?" His deep voice came through the phone, as intoxicating as wine. "The documents are in my bag," I answered. "Good. Wait for me. I'm boarding the plane now. I'll be back soon." He sounded in high spirits. I was a little surprised. "Is there something urgent?" He chuckled lightly. "I'm eager to come back and celebrate our double happiness." I was confused. What double happiness? The boarding announcement came through, and Ronan seemed to stand up. He said, "Today, I signed the contract for that project we discussed. That's one joy. And you're single again. That's a real big joy. For both you and me. On such a joyful day. I want you to see one more unforgettable fireworks show." I laughed and finished my wine. "I knew you were the one behind that last fireworks display." On the other end of the phone, Ronan's voice dropped, filled with endless joy and ease. "I never expected to keep it a secret from you. Just a little trick to win your favor." Alara. I stood in the center of the wedding hall, adorned in a custom-made champagne-colored gown, surrounded by a sea of white roses. Hundreds of eyes were fixed on me. Yet the spot beside me remained empty as time ticked by. For the third time, the officiant whispered, "Shall we wait a bit longer?" I didn't respond. Instead, I glanced at my phone. The ceremony was scheduled for 1000 a.m. It was now 10:45. The groom was still absent. Murmurs began to ripple through the guest seats. Heard he was partying at a nightclub until 3 a.m. Who's going to marry her? Didn't her family go bankrupt? Marrying into the Magnus family? She's overreaching. Good novel. Calm. I heard every word, but remained poised, expressionless. Then, I let out a low sigh. I slowly lifted my head and descended the steps. My gown railed behind me, forming a proud arc. I approached the front row, where my most loyal assistant, Linus, sat. Not my family. He stood to meet me, handing over an iPad displaying a signed acquisition agreement. I offered a faint smile, turned to face the crowd, and spoke softly yet firmly. "Apologies for the interruption. The wedding is cancelled." Gasps echoed. I continued. "But since you're all here, allow me to share something more significant." I paused, looking toward the entrance where shareholders of the Kale family conglomerate had just arrived. Effective today, Shangjing Capital has acquired full ownership of the Kale family conglomerate. I am the chairwoman of Shangjing Capital. Silence fell, so profound that a pin drop would be deafening. Those who once looked down on me were stunned. Some so-called close friends, who had planned to console me, turned pale. I looked at them and declared, "Today, I am not abandoned. I have chosen not to settle." As I exited the venue, the stares of the guests felt like knives on my back, but I was unfazed. At this farcical wedding, I was no bride, I was the hunter. Linus followed closely, shielding me from guests attempting to approach. "Chairwoman, the car is ready," he murmured. I nodded. Just as we reached the entrance, a hurried figure burst in. Kale, my missing fiancé, had finally arrived. His tie was undone, His face flushed with alcohol and panic. "Serafini, you can't just leave," he shouted. I stopped, turned, and looked at him as if he were a stranger. "I can't leave?" I smiled faintly. "You're nearly an hour late. And now you accuse me?" "I had late-night engagements. It wasn't intentional." He lowered his voice, glancing at the guests, trying to save face. "How could you? In such a setting. Put the Magnus family in." I interrupted. "Kale, you always claimed I was overreaching. Marrying down. But now, your entire Magnus family must pledge allegiance to me." He was stunned. I spoke calmly, my voice low but enough to shatter his pride. 3 days ago, Shangjing Capital quietly acquired 61 of the Kale family conglomerate shares. Your engagements last night were to plead with your father to retain his chairman position. Weren't they? His eyes widened. You planned this all along. I never saw marriage as a destination. I wanted all of you to bow down. Without another glance, I stepped into the radiant May morning. As the corridor closed, I finally shed my icy facade, leaning back with eyes closed. Linus offered warm water. "Shall I prepare a press release?" I shook my head. Let them speculate. The wilder their guesses, the more valuable I become. I opened my phone, watching the latest financial headlines scroll. Kale family wedding turns into corporate takeover scene. Mysterious heiress possibly new chairwoman of Shangjing Capital. A slight smile played on my lips. None of this was accidental. It was all part of the plan. Since 5 years ago, when my family went bankrupt, my father jumped to his death, and I was forced to drop out of university. I had been waiting for this day. 5 years ago, I was Serafini. Solaris of the Serafini family conglomerate. Born with a silver spoon. Envied by many. Back then, I didn't understand the sound of trust shattering. I only knew that day, my father was taken by the police for embezzlement and money laundering. That night, he leapt from the company's executive conference room, his body leaving a bloody mark on the ground. My mother fainted on the spot and went mad upon waking. On my 20th birthday, I transformed from a pampered heiress to the daughter of a fraud shunned by all. Our family's downfall was swifter than trending news. Ironically, having fulfilled my sigh, the most ruthless in withdrawing investments and kicking us while down was the Kale family conglomerate. Kale's father, Magnus, once sat at our dining table, affectionately calling me Little Serafini. He said Kale and I were a match made in heaven, and arranged our engagement early on. But on the day of the incident, he not only denied any association with us but also acquired 3 of our subsidiaries and sold off half of the commercial plaza my father developed. Kale was even quicker. Before my father's body was cold, he publicly kissed another woman at her birthday party, claiming he never acknowledged our engagement. I remember that night, standing under neon lights. My stomach churned. That night, I vomited violently. Not from heartbreak, but because the pregnancy test showed 2 lines. I was pregnant. And the father was the man who betrayed my family and me. Kale. I told no one. I disappeared for a year. Hiding abroad. Working in an oncology hospital. Translating documents. Doing odd jobs to save Forces Arane section. That year, I gave birth to twins, a boy, Atlas, and a girl, Lacan. They were lives I fought to preserve. Back then, I vowed, one day, I would make the Magnus family taste betrayal and humiliation. I would raise my children, establish a foundation, acquire shares, and grind every bit of disgrace into the steps of my ascent. I didn't need a prince to rescue me. Because I am the king. At 6 a.m., I stood in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. Egg rolls, millet porridge, and 2 servings of the kids' favorite strawberry yogurt, when neatly arranged on white porcelain plates. The kitchen light glowed softly, casting a silent warmth. "Mommy, I dreamed I became a CEO last night." Walken ran out clutching her pillow, slippers flapping, her hair a mess but eyes sparkling. I smiled, patting her head. "So you're the CEO. What about your brother?" "He's the vice president. He brings me coffee." She giggled, dashing off to knock on her brother's door. The door opened. revealing Atlas with a furrowed brow and a resigned expression. I've told you many times. Even COS have to listen to the chairman. He wore a crisp white school uniform shirt, his hair slicked back with water. Looking quite dashing. Watching the two of them, a profound sense of contentment welled up inside me. 5 years ago, I was a disgraced terrorist cast out of my family. Now, I'm the chairwoman of Shingjing Capital, a mother of 2, and my own pillar of support. My children attend the most prestigious private elementary school in Kyoto, where the students are either heirs to conglomerates or offspring of political and business alliances. I hadn't planned to reveal their identities so early, but today I had to visit the school after receiving a call from the teacher. Serafini, a parent is quite upset, claiming your child is affecting their child's mental health. When I arrived at the classroom door, I saw a woman in a Chanel suit pointing at Atlas, loudly questioning the teacher. How can a child like that be in the same class as my daughter? No one knows who their father is. For all we know, they're bastards. Raised without a father, how could they have good character? Atlas stood with his head down, fists clenched tightly. I heard every word clearly. Entering the classroom, I removed my coat and tossed it aside. Who are you calling a bastard? The woman was momentarily stunned, then gave me a once-over and sneered. You're their mother? Oh, I've heard about you, the abandoned bride. Right? The classroom filled with whispers and stifled laughter. I stepped up to her, looking down, and said deliberately, I am Serafini, chairwoman of Shingjing Capital. I don't need a man's name to live with dignity. As for your daughter, if she ever wants to be part of our future investment projects, she'd better learn to keep her mouth shut. Her face turned pale instantly. Turning to Atlas, I knelt down and said, You're not a bastard. You're my son. Serafini's son. And the future leader. The world has no right to define you. Atlas's eyes reddened, but he pressed his lips together defiantly. I'm not crying. Mommy. I know. I whispered, gently embracing him. Meanwhile, at the Magnus family estate, Kale was watching financial news when his secretary quietly informed him. Sir, I've discovered something. 5 years ago, Serafini spent a year in Nice, France, and registered to medical records under the names Serafini and Wakan. He was taken aback. 2 records? SJFHG. Calm. 5 years ago. He abruptly stood up, murmuring, She had children? Kale didn't sleep that night. He sat in the study of the Magnus family estate, staring at the printed copies of the records. Name, Serafini. Age, for years. 10 months. Place of birth, Nice, France. Guardian, Serafini. His hands trembled as he turned to the second page. Name, Wakan. Age, for years. 10 months. Guardian, same as above. He didn't want to believe it. But one line shattered his denial. Father's name, blank. These 2 children. She had them alone. She had once, alone and under an assumed name, given birth to twins in a foreign land? He suddenly recalled that day at the wedding. The look in her eyes when she declared, I am the chairwoman of Shingjing Capital. Calm, resolute, even contemptuous. It wasn't revenge. It was the indifference that comes after seeing through everything. At the Shingjing Capital headquarters meeting room, 6 votes against, 5 in favor. Serafini will not join the Kale family board at this time. The atmosphere in the room was tense, with several elders avoiding my gaze, hiding behind the guise of company stability. I scoffed. Stability? Or are you afraid I'll dig up your old skeletons? Standing up, I placed my hands on the table, my voice icy. Fine. Today you deny me. Tomorrow I'll strip you of your shares. One shareholder sneered, Young lady, don't think that acquiring the purchase agreement means you can overturn everything. You lack the foundation. Wrong. I replied, meeting his gaze. I have time and patience to approach your foundations piece by piece. That afternoon, Kale attempted to see the children, standing at the school gate for the first time. He felt like an outsider. Excuse me. Which child are you here for? The security guard asked. He presented his ID, speaking softly. I'm here to pick up Serafini. The guard smiled politely. Serafini has instructed that no unfamiliar men are allowed near her children. He stood there, barred from entering. Inside, Atlas and Walken were descending the stairs together. He immediately recognized the boy's thick eyebrows, sharp eyes, features strikingly similar to his own in youth. At that moment, his throat tightened. But he didn't dare call out. He knew he had no right. That evening, at Serafini's family villa, after bathing the children, Walken yawned and asked, "Mommy, someone was secretly watching us after school today." "I saw." I nodded gently. "He's not a bad person." "Then who is he?" Atlas suddenly inquired. "He looks a bit like me." I paused, then smiled. "That's because you're handsome." The two children burst into laughter. But I knew in my heart that every step from now on must ensure they remain hidden. Whether it's Kale or the entire Magnus family, I won't let them come near my children. You missed out on me, that's your regret. But trying to approach them, that's a transgression I won't permit. Monday morning. A financial news headline dominated the front pages. Kale family group suspected of cash flow crisis. Q2 financial report shows significant losses. Shangjing Capital Coys as major acquirer. At the same time, I received a call from Magnus, the vice chairman of the Magnus family, the man who forced my father to his death 5 years ago. His voice was unusually subdued. "Serafini, let's discuss this." "Discuss? Discuss?" I sneered. "It's the Kale family that needs you. If you return to the board, we can go by your conditions." He tried to soften his tone. "You wouldn't want us both to go down, would you, Mr. Kale? I never play mutual destruction." I leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window of my office, my voice calm and slow. "I only played total annihilation." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before he finally asked, "What do you want?" I raised my hand, flipping open the list I had prepared, and read it out one item at a time. 3 board seats replaced. An audit of all financial statements from the past 3 years. Full transparency on all internal asset freezes. And Kale must resign from the executive board. "That's too harsh," he protested. "You are in no position to bargain." I hung up. "Here is the translated English version of your story continuation." At the same time, school. Atlas came home with a gloomy expression, throwing his backpack onto the floor. Walken's eyes were red as she whispered, "Brother was locked in the equipment room by some classmates today. They said he's a bastard and doesn't deserve to be in this school." My heart sank. Even after 5 years of being forged in fire, I couldn't suppress the rage that flared up inside me in that moment. Who did it? It was her.I. His dad's a school sponsor. I said nothing more. After settling the children, I drove straight to the school board office. "Ms. Serafini, you can't just barge in. I'm not here to ask permission." I pushed the door open and walked in. Facing the woman lounging on the couch with her legs crossed, her.I's mother. The same one who had humiliated my son at the school gates last time. "You again?" she sneered. "Your kids are too sensitive. Can't even take a joke?" I walked step by step until I stood before her, then raised my hand and slapped her hard. She was knocked to the side of the couch, letting out a shocked cry. "Are you insane? You can insult me all you want, but touch my kids, and I'll make sure you can't even stand upright again." I turned to the principal. "If this school can't keep my children safe, then you better be ready to find a new headmaster." "Ms. Serafini, please calm down. We will deal with this seriously." I sneered. "I'm not here for you to deal with it. I'm here to inform you." Evening outside the Serafini family estate, Kale finally showed up. He was dressed formally, holding children's toys and snacks like some regretful father trying to make amends after years of absence. I stood at the door, looking at him like he was a stranger. "I heard what happened at the school. I just wanted to see them," he said, his voice hoarse. "You don't have the right." His eyes turned red. "Serafini, they're my kids. Aren't they?" I paused for a moment, then said coldly, "Missing the wedding that day and a ceremony. But walking away 5 years ago destroyed a family." I didn't let him in. He stood there in the early spring chill, unmoving. Inside, Atlas leaned against the window, secretly watching the man at the door. His eyes filled with confusion and unfamiliarity. Kale Family Group Emergency Shareholders Meeting. Dozens of shareholders gathered. The atmosphere was suffocating. Everyone was waiting for one person, me. Wearing a dark, gray trench coat, I entered the conference room cleanly and decisively. No smiles. No small talk. In that moment, everyone realized it wasn't the board that invited me back. It was me allowing them to continue to exist. Kale sat in a corner. His expression complicated, but he said nothing. As the host was about to begin, Magnus suddenly stood up. Before we proceed with the motions, I have a few words. All eyes turned to him. Gone was his usual arrogance. His voice was low and subdued. I once said she was a rootless girl, and that our Magnus family was too good for her. I was wrong. Gasps rippled through the room. He continued. I thought our Magnus family could stand alone. Only to realize that Shang Jing's strategic plan has encircled us for the past 3 years. And Serafini is the one moving the pieces. She is not an outsider. She is the only one who can save the Kale family. I listened quietly, then responded with a calm voice. Mr. Magnus. You're apologizing now just to regain control. Save your breath. I turned to the meeting secretary. Let's begin. First motion: dismiss 3 current executive board members, and investigate all abnormal fund transfers from the past 3 years. The conference room fell silent. No one dared to object. At that moment, I was no one's daughter. No one's fiancée. I was Serafini, chairwoman of Shangjing. Hospital call from the school. Just then, Wadabalaosai. The school informed us that Wakan had collapsed from a sudden high fever and had been rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Linus entered. Mid-report. With an unusually tense expression, Serafini. Wakan's in pediatric emergency. The doctor says. Her fever's dangerously high. It was like lightning had struck me. All thoughts of boardrooms, acquisitions, asset freezes vanished. I rushed out of the conference room and sped to the hospital. Hospital corridor. Wakan lay in bed with an oxygen mask, face pale, eyelashes trembling faintly. I sat beside her, clutching her small hand tightly. My voice choked. Mommy's here. Mommy's here. Don't be afraid. I didn't notice Gale standing at the door, watching us. His expression was unreadable. He saw the red agate bead bracelet on her wrist when he had given me in childhood, the only keepsake I had ever kept. Now it hung on our daughter's hand. He finally spoke. She's my daughter. Isn't she? I didn't turn around. I didn't answer. I simply whispered. No, she isn't. Wakan recovered quickly. The doctor said her constitution was good. The fever had caused mild dehydration and brief convulsions. Just as I was finally breathing a sigh of relief, she clutched her plush toy and softly asked me, Mommy, that uncle who kept standing at the door, is he the same one I saw before? I pretended to adjust her pillow calmly. Which one? The one outside the school that day. He secretly watched Atlas and me come out. His eyes were red. He came today too, didn't he? I didn't respond. Her eyes brightened. He looked at me like he was really sad. She paused, then whispered, Does he like me too? My chest felt like something heavy had slammed into it. Mommy. She tugged my hand gently. Can I see him again? Just once? I looked into her pale but serious little face. My throat tight with emotion. At the same time in Kale's car. He sat in the car outside the hospital, staring at the small glowing window, sleepless through the night. In his mind was the image of Wakan's fragile, pure face the moment she grabbed his finger. She didn't cry. She wasn't scared. She just quietly looked at him. Did I really miss out on her whole life? He murmured to himself. He seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Shangjing headquarters. Chairwoman. An anonymous shareholder has just submitted a motion to freeze the company's liquid assets. Linus looked more serious than ever, handing me an encrypted digital letter signed anonymously. I skimmed it. My expression darkened instantly. Someone inside the board had turned. If this proposal goes through, Our control funds for the Kale acquisition will be temporarily frozen. It will affect the ongoing full takeover. Who did it? I asked. Simultaneously school. Atlas returned home with a gloomy expression, tossing his backpack onto the floor. Watkins' eyes were red as he whispered, "My brother was locked in the equipment room by classmates today. They said he's a bastard and doesn't deserve to attend this school." My heart sank. Even after 5 years of hardening myself, I couldn't suppress the fury rising within me at that moment. Who did this? It was her.I. His father is a school sponsor. I didn't say much. After settling the 2 children, I drove straight to the school board office. "Serafini, your sudden visit. I'm not here to ask for permission." I pushed open the door and walked into the office. Looking at the woman sitting on the sofa with her legs crossed, her.I's mother. The same woman who had humiliated my son at the school gate last time. "You again?" She sneered. "Your child is too sensitive. Can't even take a joke?" I stepped closer to her, raised my hand, and slapped her across the face with a loud smack. She was knocked to the side of the sofa, screaming, "You're crazy. You can insult me, but if you touch my child, I will make sure you can't even stand up." I turned to the principal. "If this school can't keep my child, then prepare to replace the principal." "Serafini, please calm down. We will handle this seriously." I sneered. "I don't need you to handle it. I'm here to inform you." Evening, Serafini family villa entrance. Kale finally arrived. He was dressed formally, holding children's toys and snacks in his hands, like a regretful father trying to make amends after years of absence. I stood at the door, looking at him as if he were a stranger. "I heard about what happened at school. I just wanted to see them." His voice was hoarse. "You have no right." His eyes turned red. "Serafini, they are my children, right?" I paused. "My voice, I see. You not showing up that day, and a wedding. But your departure 5 years ago destroyed a family." I didn't let him in. He stood motionless in the chilly spring wind. Inside the house, Atlas leaned against the window, quietly watching the door. His eyes filled with confusion and unfamiliarity. Kale family grouped temporary shareholders meeting. Dozens of shareholders gathered. The atmosphere was suffocating. Everyone was waiting for one person. Me. I walked into the conference room in a dark, gray trench coat, clean and sharp, without a smile or greeting. At that moment, everyone realized it wasn't the board inviting me back. It was me allowing it to continue existing. Kale sat in the corner, his expression complex but silent. Just as the host was about to start, Magnus suddenly stood up. "Before the motion begins, I have a few words to say." All eyes turned to him. He put away his usual arrogance, his voice low. "I once said she was a girl without background, that the Magnus family was marrying up. I was wrong." The crowd was in an uproar. He continued, "I thought our Magnus family could remain independent. But I discovered Shangjing's strategic deployment had been surrounding us for 3 years. And Serafini is the one orchestrating this game. She is not an outsider. She is the only one who can save the Kale family." I listened quietly and then spoke lightly. "Kale's father. If you're apologizing now to regain control, I suggest you save your breath." I looked at the meeting recorder. "Let's begin. First motion: dismiss 3 current executive directors and investigate abnormal fund transfers over the past 3 years." The conference hall fell silent. No one dared to refute. At this moment, I was not someone's daughter, nor someone's fiancée. I was Serafini, chairman of Shangjing. School notification. The school informed that Wakin had a sudden high fever and collapsed at school, being rushed to the hospital. Linus reported the meeting situation while walking in with a tense expression. "Serafini, Wakin is currently in the pediatric emergency room. The doctor said her temperature is alarmingly high." I felt as if struck by lightning. All thoughts of board meetings, acquisitions, and asset freezes vanished from my mind. I rushed out of the conference room, heading straight to the hospital. Hospital corridor. Wakin lay on the hospital bed with an oxygen mask, her face pale, eyelashes trembling slightly. I sat by the bed, tightly holding her small hand. Choking softly. Mommy is here. Don't be afraid. Kale appeared at some point. Standing at the door. Watching the scene with a complex expression. He saw the red agate bead bracelet on her small hand, the only old item I had kept from my childhood, now hanging on my daughter's wrist. He finally spoke. She's my daughter. Right? I didn't turn around or respond. Only softly said. No. Walk-An's recovery. Walk-In recovered quickly. The doctor said her constitution was fairly good, only experiencing mild dehydration and temporary convulsions due to the high fever. Just when I thought I could finally breathe a sigh of relief, she hugged her plush toy and gently asked me. Mommy, the uncle who kept standing at the door. Is he the one I've seen before? I pretended to adjust her pillow nonchalantly. Which person? The one at the school gate before. The day he secretly watched me and brother come out. His eyes were red. He came today too, right? I didn't answer. Her eyes lit up. He looked at me. Like, very sad. She paused and whispered. Does he also like me a lot? I felt as if a heavy object had struck my heart. Mommy. She gently pulled me. Can I see him again? Just once. I looked at her pale but serious little face. My throat choked. Simultaneously Kale in the car. He sat in the car outside the hospital, looking at the small light in the window, staying awake all night. His mind was filled with Walk-In's fragile yet pure face. The moment she held his finger, not crying, not afraid, just quietly looking at him. Did I really miss out on her life? He muttered to himself, feeling as if he had aged 10 years. Shangjing headquarters. Chairman. An anonymous shareholder has suddenly proposed a vote to freeze liquid funds. Linus looked unusually serious, handing me an electronically signed letter. I glanced at it. My face instantly darkening. This was an internal betrayal within the board. If this proposal passes, our main control funds over the Kale family will be temporarily frozen, affecting the ongoing comprehensive acquisition. Who did this? I asked. Can't find the name. But it must be an internal board member collaborating with external shareholders to initiate this. I chuckled softly. This wasn't an accident but a premeditated anti-control operation. Someone was unwilling to see me win. I stood up, eyes sharp. Notify the finance department to immediately audit all account fund movements and contact the law firm to prepare a response plan. I want to see who is moving my pieces behind the scenes. Evening at home. Atlas quietly approached me. Mommy, Walk-In secretly wrote a letter today, saying she wants to give it to that uncle. I was shocked. Opened the envelope, and saw the child's crooked handwriting filling the page. I don't know who you are, but you always look at me like you want to cry. I'm not afraid of you. Can you come find me again? I'll secretly share half my candy with you, and I won't tell Mommy. I closed my eyes, my throat tightening. I can forgive the whole world, but what I fear most is my child forgiving others on their behalf. It's him. Linus spread the investigation report in front of me, with a name prominently displayed behind the scenes. My fingertips clenched, the back of my hand turning white. Why did he do this? Linus said softly. Because he's a relative of Magnus. Everything suddenly made sense. My father's death, the collapse of the Serafini family group, every step behind me, wasn't a coincidence. It was a meticulously planned harvest by them. And the person I once respected and trusted was one of the executioners. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, my voice almost devoid of warmth. Prepare for war. Magnus family conference room. Kale was arguing with his father. You and Cassius jointly froze Shangjing's funds. Are you crazy? I'm protecting the Magnus family from being destroyed by her. Magnus roared. She saved us. And now you're stabbing her in the back? She wants to destroy us, can't you see? Kale suddenly shouted. Destroy us? We destroyed her first. His voice echoed in the conference room, making several mid-level managers turn pale. He finally stood by her, not just emotionally, but in stance. That night, Serafini family villa. Atlas was unusually quiet today. During dinner, he suddenly put down his chopsticks and looked at me. Mommy, can I ask you a question? Of course. That. Uncle Kale. Is he my and Walken's dad? My spoon paused. The air felt like a snapped string. Instantly shattering. Atlas continued. After school today. He helped me solve a problem and played with me for 10 minutes. Someone asked me who he was. And I said he was my dad. I was stunned. Not knowing what to say. Atlas bit his lip and whispered. Mommy. Are you angry? I didn't speak. Turned around. Went back to my room. And collapsed to the floor as soon as I closed the door. Tears fell onto the wooden floor one by one. I'm not angry. I'm scared. Scared that my child will fall in love with someone who once destroyed everything I had. Scared that all my years of effort will be undone by a child's soft call of dad. Simultaneously, Cassius receives legal notice. A formal warning from Shangjing Capital. You are suspected of using your position to manipulate board votes for personal gain. The company will initiate an internal investigation according to the law. Attached were account freezes, public legal statements, and board restructuring procedures. Shangjing Capital officially announced the initiation of a takeover plan for the Kale family group, entering a phase of aggressive control. But this battle had only just begun. Hearing day, Beijing International Financial Center. The financial world was in an uproar. The power struggle between the Kale family group and Shangjing Capital was being broadcast live from the Beijing International Financial Center. Major financial media, reporters, shareholder representatives, and legal advisors had all gathered. Everyone was waiting to see one woman once mocked as a joke 5 years ago fight back against an entire patriarchal empire. I walked onto the hearing floor dressed in a black skirt suit, hair tied in a high ponytail. The moment I stepped up, the room fell silent. Ms. Serafini, regarding your 3 motions freezing Cassius's shares, removing him from the board, and investigating his collusion with the Kale family group, do you have anything to add? I stood tall, staring directly at the once familiar figure across from me. Yes. I said clearly. Word by word. I declared. I would like to add, in 2019, Cassius intentionally concealed a supplemental refunding agreement with the Serafini family. The day after signing, he anonymously transferred 25 million yuan into a private offshore account. I have the evidence right here. I inserted a USB drive into the screen at the front of the hall. Bank statements and transfer records began to play in front of everyone. The so-called mentor who had once pushed my father into ruin was now being dragged into the flood of truth by my own hands. Cassius stood frozen in place, trembling, speechless. But I remained expressionless and continued. 5 years ago, I had no voice. Today, as the chairwoman of Shangjing, I declare I do not need your forgiveness. Nor do I accept anyone speaking on my behalf. I don't want your remorse. I want you gone. He stood outside the crowd, watching her on the big screen, not crying, not asking for explanations, not turning back. The girl who used to be soft as paper had become a woman who could shatter an empire with a single gaze. His hands clenched at his sides, a sharp ache spreading in his chest. I really have no chance anymore? Walken woke up to see Kale sitting beside her. Her voice was soft and sleepy. Uncle. Why are you still here? His eyes were red. He crouched down and whispered. I just wanted to see if you were feeling better. Walken tilted her head. Are you my daddy? Kale froze. She continued. My brother says you look like him. I think you look like me, too. She reached out and gently grasped his finger. If you really are my daddy, can you stay? Kale closed his eyes, his nose stinging. Can you? She asked again. Just as he was about to answer, footsteps sounded at the door. It was me. I stood there, voice cold as ice. She calls you dad. That doesn't mean I forgive you for doing nothing. She doesn't understand what betrayal is. But I do. You want to stay? First ask whether I'll allow you to come close. Tua. And the entire city was asleep, but the office lights at Shangjing Capital headquarters were still burning bright. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the reflections of the traffic outside, chaotic and endless, so much like my past few years. Charging ahead with everything I had, yet never truly feeling like I belonged. Watkins' voice still echoed in my ears, "Daddy." I had always believed that nothing could pierce me anymore. But in that moment, I realized what I feared most wasn't his return. It was the possibility that my children might choose to forgive on my behalf. "Chairwoman. It's time. You have the Kale family integration press conference tomorrow." Linus's voice came quietly from outside the door. I nodded, picked up my blazer, but as I turned around, my hand trembled. Papers fell to the floor in a scattered mess. Linus froze for a second, then quickly bent down to help. I crouched down beside him, murmuring, "Linus, am I being too cruel?" He paused, then said quietly, "No, you're just too lonely." 3 Atlas sat at the bedroom door, listening to the faint sounds of sobbing from the master bedroom. He didn't dare to speak, didn't dare to sleep. He had never seen his mother that powerful, invincible woman cry like a lost child in the dead of night. His small fists clenched. He didn't understand the wars of grown-ups. But he knew this. Even the strongest people in the world need to be protected. "Next time, let me protect you. Okay?" he whispered in his heart. Kale reached out to Linus himself, handing over internal documents, evidence of Cassius secretly manipulating multiple major projects. "You wouldn't have been able to find these. But I could." Linus was stunned. You're helping her?" Kale looked down at the documents. "I'm not helping her. I'm making amends." All he wanted was a chance. Even just to stand beside her no longer as her enemy. But when I received the files that day, I gave only a 2-word response. Stand down. I didn't need his redemption. Not because I didn't understand his heart, but because I couldn't afford to expose that weakness again. That evening Shang jinged our press conference. I stood under the spotlight in an all-white suit. As of today, Shang Jing Capital officially holds 76 of the Kale Family Group's shares and has completed the full replacement of its core management team. My tone was calm. My expression blank. As if I'm reporting just another financial summary. But every financial media outlet, business rival, and member of the Magnus family present, knew deep down, the woman abound and at the altar 5 years ago, was now in complete control of a billion-dollar industrial empire. It had taken me 5 years to deliver the most perfect revenge. But after the conference, Linus handed me a thick envelope. We found more. When I opened the first page of the dossier, my face immediately turned cold. The collapse of the Serafini family group 5 years ago wasn't just the work of the Magnus family and Cassius. There had been another first, a silent shareholder whose withdrawal of funds dealt the fatal blow. And that name was my uncle. That winter's day, as snow fell, I went alone to my father's grave. No flowers. Only that report proof that my own uncle had pulled Serafini Group's capital and shorted its stock, delivering the final blow that destroyed my father. I burned the report to ashes. The wind scattered them across the tombstone. I whispered, "Dad, I didn't let them get away with it. But I didn't become one of them, either." In that moment, I finally let go of the hatred and burden I'd carried for 5 years. 3 days after the press conference hospital hallway, Kale finally found me sitting on a bench. I was reading a bedtime story to Atlas. Watkins was asleep on my shoulder. Kale stood at the door cautious, as if he had wandered into the wrong dream. "Serafini, I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I'm not asking for your love. I'm only asking, don't take them away from me." I looked at him with no hatred. And no pity. "Kale, you missed your chance with me. That's fine. But I've been missing myself for far too long. I can't let my children lose their future, too. You think these 5 years were about revenge, but really, I was just trying to survive." He choked up and nodded. "You can hate me forever. But I'll always keep a door open for them." I gently picked up Watkins. As I turned to leave, I said, "I'm not taking them away. I'm taking them somewhere they'll never have to look back." 6 months later, a white seaside villa in southern France. The sun shone gently. The wind carried the scent of gardenias along the wall. Atlas ran along the beach. Watkins sat quietly in the garden with a sketchpad, coloring the world of her new life. I lay back on a lounge chair, sunglasses on, Flipping through the latest issue of a finance magazine. Serafini, heading Postelnaid Sa. Chairwoman of Shengjing Capital, from jilted bride to global queen of MA. I chuckled softly and closed the magazine. My life doesn't belong to anyone's expectations. Nor anyone's regrets. It belongs to me. The end.